Dave DeBow. Today we're talking about how to resurrect your connections and raise real estate capital with ease. So if you're a real estate investor and you're looking to start bringing on joint venture partners or private investors, private lenders, you're probably wondering, how can I break the ice with people and get the whole real estate conversation going? In today's video, we're going to go through my whole connection resurrection process for really getting the conversation started about real estate investing, setting the stage and getting going with prospective investors in a classy way instead of just going for the jugular and trying to raise capital from them right off the get-go. So this is going to help you avoid rejection. It's going to help you avoid turning people off. It's going to help you avoid making some of the dumb mistakes I made early on with raising capital. So stay tuned. All right, I learned the hard way that reconnecting with your investor prospects on more of a personal level first before we start trying to raise capital or start even the capital conversation is super important, because way back in the day when I was first trying to raise capital, I made a big mistake. First of all, I waited until I had a deal on the go before I started trying to raise the money. And the second thing was I was just very clumsy about how I went about it. So I only had a couple of weeks to try and raise 85 grand, and I got desperate. And one of the things I desperately did was I spammed everybody I knew by email with my deal, and I just cold spammed them with this deal. And all I succeeded in doing was turning off a lot of really good investor prospects. I didn't raise any money, lost that deal, got massive egg on my face. But worse than that, I literally lost out on probably close to $1 million in capital because I was so clumsy. So don't make that mistake. Do this instead. Do this, do this connection resurrection process instead. And this is kind of a way to set the stage, break the ice, and have the first shot across the bow in a classier fashion when it comes to raising capital. All right? So the connection resurrection is just a very simple 3-step email campaign. And this is the first part of our whole launch process in the Money Partner formula, right? So we got the foundation. We've talked about that. You can check that out on previous videos. Now we're into the launch phase, and we want to do the first thing there, which is this whole connection resurrection. Okay? So you've got your target group of investor prospects. You've got their email addresses. You've got them all set up in an email autoresponder system or a CRM. Now, what do we do? So we want to avoid just going direct to them. We don't want to come across like we're desperate. We don't want to come across like we're network marketers. We want to come across as generally wanting to connect with people, because we do. All right? So the trick is we just send out 3 simple email messages. And let's say you do this on a Monday and a Wednesday and a Friday, and this is going to set you up for success moving ahead and starting now to talk about real estate. So just take this 1 week to kind of reconnect with people first, and then you're going to be well positioned to start those capital conversations. So the first message in this connection resurrection process is what I call the warm-up message, or the Christmas letter from Aunt Nadine. So this is just a written email where we catch people up on what we and our family have been up to for the last 3, 4, 5 years, right? So way back in the day, my Aunt Nadine, way back before faxes and emails and all this kind of stuff, when people used to actually write letters, every year she would write a big long letter about what she and the family had been up to over the year. She would go down and she'd get it photocopied, and she'd put that in with all of her Christmas cards. And that's how we stayed in touch, right? So that's how we knew what was going on with her family. We're going to do a modern day version of this. We're going to assume that most of the people on our contact list have not heard from us really in a number of years, and we're just going to catch them up on what we've been up to. So beginning part of the email is just like, hey, it's Dave. Chances are it's been a while since we connected. Thought I'd try something different. Send you a quick little message. See how you're doing. Here's what I've been up to. So talk about myself, my 2 kids, my wife, what we've been up to, what's going on as a family, my stepson, all of that kind of good stuff, the family type stuff. Talk about that. Talk about what's going on with work without getting into sounding salesy about real estate investing, just very casual by the way type stuff. Talk about some of the not so good stuff that's happened over the last few years. So at the time that I'm recording this, the whole COVID thing a recent memory, so you might want to talk a little bit about how that affected you. Talk about what you'd like to do for fun and hobbies and outside activities. If you're into travel, if you're into music, if you're into books or movies or whatever your hobbies are, talk a little bit about that. And then at the end, just kind of wrap it up and say something like, well, hey, that's what I've been up to. How about you? How are you doing? Please hit reply to this email. I'd love to catch up. Now, you can send that out through an email autoresponder type system and go out to all 150, 200, 300 people on your list and personalize it for each one of them. Dear Mary, dear John, dear Bill, dear whoever, right? So you can personalize that and customize it for each person in that way, all right? And then here's your job. Once you've sent it out, make sure you respond to people who get back to you. So some people are going to reply, they're going to go, hey, Dave, this is kind of weird. Is this really you? Yeah, it's really me. Other people might say, write their whole life story. That's great. You just kind of comment back on that. Hey, Mary, so happy to hear that your daughter graduated. That's fantastic. Congratulations. That sort of thing. Have a genuine connection, a little bit of back and forth there. People might say, hey, is this some sort of a mass email thing? In which case I'd be very upfront and say, yeah, I'm sending this out to a number of people at the same time. However, I respond to everybody personally, which is true, right? So send that first email up. Second email goes out on Wednesday. Same idea, but we're going to do a different format. Instead of just a written email, we're going to take those same concepts, but we're going to do it in a video format. Why video? Because it's the next best thing to you bumping into that person in the lineup at Starbucks, right? So video is the closest thing we can have to that actual personal connection, and it is just so much more efficient. So we're going to send out a video version talking about what we're up to, maybe, if having your spouse with you, having a kid with you. I had one client that's a car buff, so he did this video and he kind of walked us through one of the cars he was working on, which was very, very interesting. Another client of mine, we were doing this, and she had a parakeet, a pet parakeet. So she had the parakeet on her shoulder, kind of nibbling on her ear. That was a lot of fun. So just bring some personality into it. And again, just talk about it. And at the end, always have that call to action. Say, hey, enough about me. How about you? If you haven't had a chance to get back to me, please, please, please hit reply to this email. Let's catch up. Okay, send that one out. And then the third email is what we call the transition message. And this one's really important because now we're going to show people, we're going to tell people we're going to be transitioning from just warm and fuzzy, all personal stuff to starting to talk about real estate investing. So very important. I recommend that you do this via a video as well. Keep it short and sweet, about a minute long. And then that's going to set the stage. Give people the heads up that you are a real estate investor. Give people the heads up that you're going to be communicating with them about the opportunity to invest with you, but you're not directly soliciting anything in that message. These three messages, this connection resurrection process is just really designed to set the stage and get you started on the right foot. But here's the cool thing. What we have found is in about 50% of the cases where we work with clients on this, they actually have people reaching out to them saying, hey, Bill, what's this real estate thing that you're doing? This is really interesting. Tell me more. And they actually get meetings booked and they start to raise capital right off the get-go, even though it's not designed for that. It's really just designed to be the first shot across the bow. Okay, so it can work really, really well. In fact, one great example of this is a client of ours, Shyam. Shyam did this whole warm-up campaign. He didn't even have that big of a list. I think he had about 160 people on his list, but he had massive response. He had, I think 55 to 65 people actually responded back to him from this. He had reconnections with old bosses from previous jobs that he had. He had people reaching out. He actually got his first 2 investors on board just from doing this warm-up campaign, even though it's not designed for that, this connection resurrection. Even though that's not the initial purpose, it quite often works really well. So big tips about this. Make sure you keep them pretty tight. So again, Monday, Wednesday, Friday works well. Number 2, your number 1 job is to respond to people when they connect with you, because there is capital in those connections. So don't let them leave them hanging. If people reply back to you, even if it's just a few words, acknowledge that they replied back, thank them, and try to get that conversation going a little bit there, because there is capital, there is money in those connections. So if you like this idea, and if you like more like them, you like examples of this, go ahead, get my book, Money Partner Formula. Grab a copy at investorattractionbook.com, or click on the link in the description below. Take care. We'll talk to you on the next episode.